If you were to tell me that tomorrow I would lose absolutely everything that I own, my income, my job, my network, but there was one skill that I could keep with me, here's what I'd choose. I think most people, when they come to think of skills, they would think about technical skills or skills that they learn in a degree. But the one skill that I believe changes everything when it comes to success, and the one that I would choose to keep, is the skill of communication. Communication happens literally everywhere you go. It is what you use to get any opportunity you want in life. It is the one central thing whereby people judge you based on. If you think about in personal relationships, people often talk about this concept of he gives me bad vibes, she gives me bad vibes, I don't like being around this person. And behind that, there are probably behavioral things that are skills within communication or lack of skills that that person is doing, which makes them come across to other people in a certain way. This is why people like being around people. This is why people hire people. This is why, if you're looking to get married, the way you communicate is drastically going to change how you are perceived, and is going to drastically change how likely you are to get the outcome that you want. Communication is the central, fundamental thing that underlies all of sales and marketing. Sales is literally just being able to have a good conversation with a person, good communication. There's so many skills, like sub-skills underneath the skill of communication, that you can employ to actually have better communication skills, right? Listening to a person, repeating back to what they've said to you to show that you've understood. Like, these are just very small examples of what good communication could look like. But if there is one skill that I would choose to take with me anywhere I go in life, it would be communication. There is nothing like being able to communicate, to talk, to interact with people that will change the trajectory of your life faster than communication. If you take a look at anybody super successful, if you look at somebody like Hormozy right now, right? Or Cole Gordon, or anybody who's pretty big in the public eye, or who have been able to influence a lot of people, right? They have a skill of being able to communicate in a certain way, which makes them influence a lot of people. When you are able to influence a lot of people, that gives you power, right? If you think about an army, why is an army powerful? Well, it's because you have a leader. That leader influences a bunch of people, which is the army, and that's why the power lies with the leader, right? It's influence. Now, influence can be done in many different ways, right? But the best form of influence is being able to speak. If we think about this from an Islamic perspective, right? Da'wah is the ability to influence a person to take a better action in terms of their belief, right? If you look at the Prophet ﷺ, when he first got given revelation and he came across to the people and he had to convey that message, right? He had skills of being able to communicate with a person to actually convey that message, right? And so in da'wah, in entrepreneurship, in business, in every field of life, if you don't have this skill, just naturally, you can learn the skill, because if you don't, you will be losing out a lot in life. And this is why I think that people just overlook these skills which are not very technical, because typically how I was brought up as well is get a degree, get a job in engineering or being a doctor or whatever it may be. But actually what's way more important than that is your ability to persuade a person, to influence a person, because opportunities lie, right, behind closed doors. Those closed doors usually have the security guard of a person. That person dictates which opportunities you can have or you can't have. For example, take me, for example. I now am a sales team manager, right? On a big offer, I manage my own sales team, right? There are people who want to get access to this sales team. They want to be part of my team. Now, the way that they convey themselves to me is going to drastically change how likely they are to being hired by me, right? If somebody leaves me with a bad impression, I am not going to hire that person. That role could change that person's life, right? And this sounds very obvious, but I think that if you can manipulate this one variable, you'll be surprised at how many doors you can access, how many people you can access if you just had better communication skills, right? People often talk about, oh, I can't get married. Marriage is all about selling yourself. You are there selling yourself to another person, right? They're doing the same to you. Now, if you're struggling, right, one area to look at could be, how do I communicate? How do I present myself, right? What things do I say? What behaviors do I do? That might not be the problem, right? Allah might have just written you to marry somebody, you haven't seen yet, right? But improving your communication skills is going to help you increase your chances of getting the outcomes that you want in life, right? If you want a job, you are simply selling yourself. That's all you're doing. You wanting to be hired, you are essentially selling yourself to that person as to why you should be hired for this role. So if you want to get things out of life, right, which I assume you do if you're human, because we all want things in life, your ability to persuade, communicate, influence another person is going to be the number one factor in whether or not you can get the things out of life that you actually want. So take some time out, learn the skill of communication. And for me, the best thing that taught me communication was learning sales. Sales is all about good communication. It's your ability to understand the person and help them come to a course of action that is going to benefit them. That is what sales ultimately is. Now, the way you do that is by allowing a person to feel understood, but also not letting their ways of thinking, their limiting beliefs, hold them back from taking action on what they should, right? So you're understanding enough to hear them out and let them feel understood, but you will not just yes men them in living the rest of their life. You want to confront certain things which have been holding them back. Now, I could speak about this topic forever, but what I've learned is if you cannot communicate with people effectively, you're going to be held back, especially in sales, right? If you're actually already in the game of sales, the impression that you leave on people dictates the level of influence that you have on them. And that is going to be directly tied to how much money you make, right? If you are just somebody who's looking for a job right now, your ability to communicate effectively is going to decide whether that person decides to hire you or not, right? Me being a manager right now, I've realized how so much of hiring is all about how a person makes you feel, right? When they tell you that they're willing to do whatever it takes, based on the way they've said that, the interaction that you had, do you actually believe them, right? How much can they influence me to believe that person? To summarize this, if you want more things out of life and you feel like you haven't been able to get things out of life and maybe people don't give you opportunities, learn the skill of communication. A really good place to start is sales, right? Getting a sales role will teach you a lot about communicating with people effectively. Communication, relationships. So communication is the foundation of relationships. Relationships is the gateway to opportunities. If you don't have relationships, your pool of opportunities reduces drastically. So start with the skill of being able to communicate with people well. That will allow you to establish relationships, which are going to give you opportunities that you want so that you can start living the life that you want to live by the permission of Allah. And as a final reminder to myself, firstly and foremost, is we as Muslims should be using this skill of communication, the things that we learn from sales and marketing, to help aid our da'wah scene, because that's all it is. Your ability to influence a person is directly correlated with, when it comes to the da'wah scene, how many people, they won't be guided through you, but you might be the means of being able to help them come to know Islam, right? Allah is the one who guides, right? But we give da'wah as an attempt to help people reflect upon where they're headed, what they're doing right now, and if what they are upon is the truth, right? So we can take these skills, we can benefit from them in the dunya and also benefit from them in the akhirah. And that's pretty much it. Learn sales, learn communication. It's going to change your life by the permission of Allah. It's the one thing that I think has served me well in life. Some people have it naturally. Some people, they have to learn it, because how we're brought up often dictates, or the environments that we're brought up in often dictates the soft skills that we've learned just innately, just by seeing our parents and so on and so forth. If you have parents, if you've been brought up in a large family, you might have a bit more social intelligence, or sort of, you might have a better idea of how to navigate around people. Whereas if you've been brought up in an environment which was very much kind of secluded and isolated, it might be more difficult for you to pick up on those things naturally, but it does not mean that you're completely hopeless. They're all skills that you can learn. It's just behavior at the end of the day, right? It's a load of if X then Y statements, and if you can actually take the time to learn it, you'll benefit hugely. You'll realize how things are not that difficult. You just need to take a step forward and you'll be surprised at what you can learn and achieve in a very short period of time. So learn sales. It'll change your life by the permission of Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.